Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Now, before we begin and get into the really interesting things of what a new gen firewall can do, there's one more thing that I need to cover regarding the Arista firewall introductionary video series that I'm making currently. And that's just to give you guys a introductionary walkthrough of how DNS works fully. And by doing that, we are going to get ready for all the dynamic routing protocols, VPNs, and all that stuff that basically requires a second firewall to demonstrate. So when you're going to be maneuvering DNS, the reason why it's so important in our firewall to properly be configured is so that when you type in a address in your address bar without it going to the internet, it's going to recognize it by domain name rather than IP address. So as you can see, I've typed in the domain name of one of my integrated lights out modules that I have. I also have http://04, and it's going to take me to one of the virtual ESXi clients that I'm hosting, and that's all managed by the Arista NGFW that is hosting at the edge of my network. So there's multiple things. They're very easy to handle once you get the hang of it. Is there's a couple of things that manage how DNS in Arista NGFW works. One of them, sorry, the first and the foremost is you're gonna have to go under config network, and the two most important tabs that you're gonna be looking for is DNS server and DHCP server. The reason why is because you want to properly identify the devices that are under your network, how Arista recognizes them and sees them, and the next thing that you want to take care of is how Arista points to them. If that doesn't make any sense, don't worry, I will show you what I mean. Under DHCP server, which is the first thing that we want to address, is how your firewall is going to be recognizing the devices onto your network. As you can see, I have already made a couple of static entries, which is exactly telling my Arista firewall that for a certain MAC address, we are going to be allocating it to a certain IP. And Arista firewall is going to allocate that IP, kind of like a marriage between the two. If we want to add another one, we're going to select, say, the air conditioning unit that is Wi-Fi capable. We're just gonna add the plus, and it adds it over to the static entries. And from here on out, it will know to only assign IP 2.171 to this MAC address for the air conditioner. Now, under DNS, which is kind of where it can get a little frisky. And the reason for that is because some people who are not more or less adept with how DNS works can get a little confused, which is not the end of the world. It does take a little bit of getting used to it, but after you get the hang of it, you realize how useful and how beautiful it is when it works. So, to start off, what you want to do initially is under domain DNS servers. This is where you're going to add the top level domain name for your domain. So office.home or whatever it is, right? And then in the server little window, this is where you're going to be underlining what's the IP of the server that's taking care of all the DNS queries that go to it. In my case, it's already been assigned dgsc.site, and my firewall is handling all the DNS requests. Now, You can also type in the same domain, dgsc.site, and have an additional server, which is, for example, an Active Directory or a Samba server. It From my experience with Arista gateways, or with Arista NGFWs, it actually works pretty well if you're trying to integrate it into a Windows Active Directory environment. However, when it comes to integrating it with Windows Server, Active Directory, or another user management service, this is something that we're going to be looking at separately in another video. There's still a bunch of things that I still need to show you guys. One of them is what I'm about to do right now. It's basically creating a domain name which matches the host name of your computer that you want to address, and then assigning it to the IP that your computer has. Now, one of the main reasons why it's important to set a static DHCP lease is so that if your computer or your target computer, goes offline for a longer amount of time, that's your lease, even though it's offline, the lease is still going to be preserved so that next time the computer comes online, it will have the same IP, and as long as the static DNS entry points to that IP, and that IP is reserved exactly for that computer in question, everything will continue to work as it's supposed to. So we're going to come over here, click on the add button, and for example, I want to put in, oh man, what do I want to put? You know what? We're just going to use a couple of the for the pre-existing examples. So we're going to take this, which is the NAS server that I have, that is just, for data related purposes when it comes to iSCSI and everything. So what it is, basically how it works is the FQDN points to the IP 2.28, and then if we just come in a little bit further down here, IP 2.28 points to this one, correct? And if you guys are more or less familiar with your OSI model, it goes layer 3 to layer 2, and that's how it, well, I don't really want to say remembers, but that's how it navigates through your net. The last thing that I wanted to talk about before I let you guys go for the end of the video is if you end up wanting to expose your services to the internet, which, depending on how you want to do it, and there is a DNS client, which has been a long time coming. The DNS updater that was in the old Untangled firewall and under the new Arista firewall now is you would come under configuration on your network, and you're going to select hostname. Under hostname, ideally, in a perfect world, once you set up the gateway hostname and domain, you're going to select the second option for using the hostname, meaning that whenever you open the ports facing the internet and you type in your hostname, if everything is configured properly and with your domain registrar is properly pointed to your IP, once you put that in website, from a web browser, it's going to point you directly to your firewall. For those who have dynamic, once you enable the dynamic DNS service configurator, as you can see, there's a bunch of services which previously sadly were not available, and I had to double check that. They were not available as an entry, not because they didn't work, because they just weren't integrated with an updated version of the DNS client. As you can see, you have some popular names like NoIP, Google Domains, Cloudflare, like DNS, DNS-O-Matic. This is kind of like a catch-all DNS updating client. It's really cool. But for the majority of you that are using NGFW, I'm pretty sure that you could appreciate that there is a Cloudflare integration for an update. Obviously, once you select your service, just put in your username token, your zone token, and your host name. And once and once it's all said and done, you can log into your Cloudflare dashboard, and you will see that your firewall is going to be also updating. That being said, thank you very much for joining me. See you guys then.